Hey, welcome back to Typevolution. I have a special guest with me, Tori from Personality Story. Before we jump into the topic of Anima, Animus, the unconscious, Jung, personality types, all the good stuff, just tell us a little bit about your channel.
Hi, so I'm Tori from Personality Story. So my channel started off to be about MBTI and the Enneagram and personality types. And ever since I have, ventured into psychology as a whole. And so now I'm also doing videos on Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud sometimes. Yeah, all the great psychology topics.
Yeah, it's also topics I've been going even more into recently. So I think it seems like a little mini trend at the moment that we go
Oh
more
yeah,
into
I see that.
into
Yeah.
the origins of personality theory. So yeah, we already did a video on her channel, so also make sure to check that out as well. There we talked about the unconscious and the shadow, and I think that's a really good intro into now the second part, you could say, which is Anima Animus. So before we go more into personality type things and our own experiences, I want to share with you what is Anima, what is Animus, what is that concept. So this is a concept from Carl Jung, and basically it is also part of our unconscious, and he has also identified archetypes. So I want to read out something, or well, translate from here, Carl
Wow,
Jung.
from German. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah, I will try to translate it. It's not too bad. So it's the archetypes and the collective unconscious. So let me just go to the section I took out from there. So he says one of the archetypes is the anima and the animus. So before we go into that, what is an archetype? So you can see archetypes in the collective unconscious, and it's expressed in the sense of how in every culture we have certain myths, right? Certain things that repeat themselves and certain figures, characters. So things like the hero is an archetype, right? So these kinds of things we can see in every culture. So they are part of the collective unconscious. So basically what we all share on a psychological level.
Yeah.
And the
Like
anima,
star-crossed
yeah,
lovers, all those. Sorry, just
go
adding.
ahead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like, the concept of heroes and star-crossed lovers and, a lot of those are similar across
Yeah.
culture.
And these are archetypes, and he picks out anima as one of the archetypes. So let me just see what I've got here. So yeah, the anima, he says, is especially interesting for psychologists and psychotherapists, but also I think in general it is relevant. And he says it's a female, a feminine, and ketonic part of the psyche, as I'm just translating here. Ketonic, I have to admit, I didn't look up what ketonic means, but I would say it's a crucial part of your psyche as a man. So for men, it's the anima, and for women, it's the animus. And in other words, you can say the anima is the female or the feminine part of a man, especially in the unconscious psyche, and for
Yeah,
the woman, it's the animus.
yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting because, I feel like it's especially relevant today since, we talk a lot about men and women, and there's always arguments online and you see a lot of projections, and I feel like it's very relevant to what Carl Jung has been talking about, which we will cover later.
Right. Yeah, we will talk more about projection later, but it's a crucial point in this. And then let me just briefly go into. Oh wait. Well, should I mention this already? Okay, let me mention this already here. So a bit later in this chapter, he talks about the anima in the psychology of the man, and he describes it as, well, he says the anima, if it's too strong in the man, can kind of soften or weaken his character and can make him more like overly sensitive, irritable, moody, jealous, um,
Hmm.
and not, well, not really fit to life. Like, how do you translate this? Not well adapted to life. And if he's like caught up in like the unhealthy anima, he will also create unease around him.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
believe it's about balance, like integration. That's what he
right.
advocates, right? Yeah.
In this chapter, this is mostly about the anima. He doesn't go into animus here, but with the animus, I can also recommend this book. It's actually in English, so it was written in English originally. So Man and His Symbols, also with
Ooh.
Carl Jung, but it also includes other psychologists. They are all talking about Jungian concepts, but yeah, so this is a really good book also for beginners because it introduces you to these concepts in an easier way. The other writings can be harder to decipher. And so the animus in the woman, in contrast, it's overly hard, overly, like if it's unhealthy, overly hard, overly critical, um, inclined to quarrel and create conflict, basically, if it's unhealthy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I feel like I can see it, in reality. Like, how like there is this online discourse on feminine and masculine energy, and I feel like that's kind of a repackaging or, a similar concept. Like we all have both energies within us, but like, for women, more commonly we have, feminine energy, and then we have masculine energy as part of us also. But I think Carl Jung explains it better because it's like an unconscious animus, and we sort of have to integrate it, but not to the point where it overpowers us, because there is like a balance, right? Because if
Mhm.
we only, allow our animus to take over, then what about our, you know, other self, which is what we have, like in our essence, right? And obviously it differs from individual to individual. I think there are women who are just naturally more integrated. I think he also mentioned there are women who are like naturally the animus or the masculine part of her is just more conscious. But then for them they also have to balance it with their feminine. So it's like, I think that's the ultimate goal, is to sort of be aware of what is not integrated, so you are not allowing the other side to emerge in shadow ways, like you said. Like, if a woman is letting her animus take over, she can become um too much of a, like, being too critical, too argumentative, and in a way that doesn't actually empower her, right? Because
Right.
we do want like the empowering part of that, which is standing up for herself, having good boundaries. But then that's like there's an overcorrection where it can become disempowering, where she's constantly angry and constantly worked up, and it's very very bad for health. And then
Yeah.
for the men, what I understand is like when the man is like, not integrated is anima, then he can be like, too imbalanced as a person. Like he's not, in touch with his emotions, intuition, creativity. But then if he allows his anima to take over, then it's an overcorrection. So I think what you said is true. Like let's say if a man is only focused on his anima and not focused on, you know other, what people call masculine, but it's
Mhm.
an energy and a part of himself as well. Like if he's not integrated, he only has the anima, then he can become like, very indecisive, like not adapted to life, like, because we do need structure, we do need um action, right? Like
Mhm.
leadership
Yeah.
qualities, as they say. And so there has to be a balance, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have to say, um, if we kind of try to bring this into the modern age, Jung can come across a bit more traditional. I will
Mhm.
go more into some things where I'm like, it might not apply to everybody, especially when it comes to personality type.
Yeah.
But yeah, so overall, the idea is that yeah, if you're mostly masculine or mostly feminine, you kind of have like this unconscious connection to the other side as well. Like we
Yeah.
are not just one thing. And yeah, like you say, we need to integrate it, but it cannot take over our lives either, because then we are also not really embracing ourselves in a way. Like
Yeah.
we can,
It can be
it
like
can,
an overcompensation, right? Sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess if we kind of look into society nowadays, um, so in the past, it seems like when we had very strict gender roles, that men were really removed from their anima in a way,
Yeah.
and women
Also
were really
unhealthy.
removed.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they were not in touch with it much at all, at least when it was very strict.
Mm-hmm.
And then it almost got to the opposite extreme where, well, we began to emphasize, okay, you also have to tap into the other side, but then some people go too far, right? Like how I described it here, or how it was written, that the men become overly sensitive even. Like it's good to have some amount of connection to your emotions, but if I don't know, if you become overly sensitive and moody and all that stuff, that's also not good. And the
Yeah.
women who become too caught up in quote unquote masculine energy, or like, yeah, but in the unhealthy sense, right? They become too argumentative and all that stuff. So,
Yeah. Like working, I feel like in the area of work also, like you see sort of the extremes of that. There are women who are like all about work, right? They're completely detached from their emotions, and that's like also imbalanced because emotions are a very integral part of us, right? I mean, obviously for everybody, but also especially for women with our, you know, um, hormonal differences. Like we do need rest, like for our bodies, right? But sometimes, when culture overemphasize like, oh, you have to work like a man, like you have to, do this and that, and then it leads to burnout. um,
right,
People are not aware that they are actually like kind of overcompensating, right? Because they feel like, oh, we don't want to be seen as this very like only stay at home types, and now we have to reverse it and be all about work, right? But reality is like you gotta have a more nuanced sort of life, right?
yeah, it becomes tricky when you just go with whatever society dictates. You can really
Mhm.
get out of touch with your own psychological makeup, or what is in you and what is yourself. And yeah, like women, like you say, biological differences, testosterone makes it way easier for a man to just keep going and pushing,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Yeah, it's a
and
very serious matter. And I've had friends who, have to go to, like, I wouldn't say what is the exact symptom, but they have some serious health complications because of overworking. And some of the complications are not able to be resolved because it has gotten to a point where it's like permanent. And
well,
it's not just one person or two people, it's a very common problem among women, I think. I mean, from what I heard,
hmm,
it's overworking. And you know I mean, obviously for men also, like if they overwork too much, but for women even more, because we do need rest on certain times of the month, um,
right,
more than men.
yeah.
And so it's it's a complicated issue. Like obviously, and I feel like society also sometimes kind of encourages conformity in a different way. So last time it was all about staying home and taking care of kids, and that's a form of conformity because people like us, I don't think we'll be satisfied at just staying home. I mean, I am staying home technically making a video, but like
Yeah, right. No, I
I'm
agree.
working, I mean, in a sense that I have a purpose, right? Besides homemaking, which I don't even like cooking and cleaning that much. But so that's a form of conformity, right? In the past, where they force you to do certain things in order to be a woman, and sometimes they still do that. And then in reverse, there's another form of conformity where they are telling you now, like, oh, women have to be in STEM. Like I hear that a lot. I'm like,
Oh, okay.
they
Yeah.
like not all places, but some colleges, they really encourage women to be in STEM, like science and tech. They're like, oh, we need to to sort of like balance out the ratio and stuff. But then I'm like, that's not the point. Like, I think we should go for what we innately are drawn to. You know what I mean? So it doesn't really matter. Like, if you are drawn to tech as a woman, great for you, right? But for me, I am never, never drawn to tech. So it
Yeah, me
doesn't matter
neither.
how many times you tell me, like, that's going against my nature, you know? Like, everybody's different, but we have to respect our intuition. Like, we have to respect our innate natural gifts and preferences. I think that's another thing. It's not about one or the other. It's like very individual.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, society likes to, you know, kind of play into that like social peer pressure thing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's obvious, but I just noticed this overall overarching trend that humanity always tries to balance itself out, or it seems like almost like a law. So, one extreme is higher, and then we go to the other extreme to kind of balance it out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
then
I was,
sometimes you will
yeah,
swing a little bit.
right. And I was thinking the thing with STEM, right? In the past, I bet there were so many NT women, for example. They
Yeah,
were really suffering, and because they
yeah,
couldn't
overlooked.
live it out, and they were stuck in this conformity, and they had to be homemakers even though it didn't suit them. So now, back then, you should have been like, well, okay, go here. You can go to STEM. You can do science. But it goes now to the other extreme, where what I see more often, even that even types who are not suited for it that well just
Yes.
go because they want to make money or they want to be successful. And that's not really how it's supposed to be, right? Like, you're not supposed to just do it just for some externalized acclaim. Or I know it can be a good motivator for some people, but at the end of the day, you need to go with something that really suits you and who you are.
Yeah,
So
and I feel like our inner voice, it's very hard to hear sometimes because we are just around very noisy people and very noisy societal voices, right?
yeah, I also see more SF people trying STEM, or like trying to work in tech and all that stuff. And the thing
Mm-hmm.
is, that if you are quite, sorry, what?
I mean, I've also seen that with like SFPs, and honestly,
Yeah,
they're not at least in my experience, they're not enjoying it that much once they get the job. But
right. They get the money, but then it's like, yeah, it's
not
interesting.
super fulfilling.
Yeah, and yeah, I just wanted to say, if you're very intelligent, it's like sometimes people think, okay, if you're intelligent, you're an N type or something like that. But there are some intelligent SF people, and they can get into
Yeah.
tech. Like, you don't have to be an N type to do tech or whatever, um, or even a T. So I see that, but then they often cannot stick with it, or they have to do other things on the side to feel more like themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, actually, on that note, when we could talk about gender roles in biology, I also checked Wikipedia. I was just curious what they say about Anima Animus, and they in the article actually said that the man is supposed to accept the Eros, which is connection, and the woman logos, which is logic, reason. And I had to say, I felt a bit like, okay, this is a bit too traditional or a bit too one dimensional, especially because we know personality types. Like, there's T type women, F type men. So I found it a bit odd.
Yeah,
Well,
F-type men are actually supposed to integrate their logos, I think.
okay, we're back and we have a little change of scenery.
Yeah, this is the indoor version.
Yeah, because of connection stuff. Okay, let's go back to the topic. So we were talking about F men, and you said they should go into their logos more.
Yeah, they really do. I mean, no offense, but like sometimes I feel like my logos is a lot stronger than them. Sometimes, and I'm
Oh
an
no.
woman, and I'm like, you need to integrate your logos.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Desperately.
I guess that's actually a good example where the man is too much in, yeah, the quote unquote anima, right? Like, he's too caught up in his
Yeah.
feels, I guess.
I'm pretty sensitive, and I'm saying that, so they should take note because I'm a very emotional person by default already, like because of my personality type. So if I'm saying I feel more logical, then
Yeah, it's a problem. Yeah, yeah. So that was one of the things where I was a bit hesitant, or where I wanted to make a note, because that's more of a stereotypical understanding. I mean, also this
like more
concept,
generalized, right?
yeah, like okay, yeah, most women are F types, most men are T types, so from that perspective, it works, but it's not going to work in every case.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, this is also from like 100 years ago or
Yeah,
so,
where
like a long
society was
time.
very different, I think. Also, that plays a role because I think like in the past, maybe there's a difference in terms of, you know, yeah, the way that like even our okay, this is like a little bit controversial, but like people have looked at the hormonal changes in people over the years, and that could have been different.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
so I don't know.
you
I'm not gonna quote anything, but
yeah,
but
you
yeah, I
mean
feel
you
like
mean the
well, maybe it's a little different.
you mean that men have lower testosterone now? Is that
I
what
mean,
you're
I
saying?
just saw it from like an online study. It may not be accurate. I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've also seen that stuff. I mean, yeah, we don't really know if it's true or not, but there have been some changes in society where it can seem like people are becoming more, how you say, going more to the middle, like becoming less feminine or masculine, like you know what I
Mhm.
mean, like becoming a bit more androgynous.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think it's like you said, like society always tries to balance itself.
Yeah, but like to go back to it, I actually find it interesting that the Anima Animus stuff is so a bit more stereotypical, even though Jung himself wrote about the personality functions and things like that. So I find it interesting. I don't know what's that about, but also I wanted to mention in terms of socionics, right? When we go to quote unquote duality, in socionics they also talk about the dual or basically the opposite type from yours, and how that is uh, your unconscious ideal in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And it's also your weak functions. So
yeah,
it's interesting how I was just thinking, okay, well, the anima, let's say, is unconscious or partially unconscious, and let's say an INFJ male, right? Like like his opposite is ESTP, and ESTP women don't really come across like a feminine anima, you know.
yeah. It's a more fiery anima, but great still. And I mean, it's like I feel like it's a combo. Like everybody's got their own version of an anima. Like maybe ESTP women are like the more fiery anima, and then
Yeah, actually, I want to go on that note. I actually want to go into the stages of development. So, for anima, the stages of development. So there's four stages, and the first one is supposed to be Eve, like represented by someone like Eve from Adam and Eve. So the first stage is supposed to be about. Oh, actually, I can read it out. It's in English. One moment. Where is it? Oh yeah. So the first stage, okay, so this is not Jung himself, by the way. This is one of his students, I think, or followers. I think his name is M.L. von Franz, and but he's kind of relating it to Jung. So Jung noted there are four stages in its development. The first stage of the anima is best symbolized by the figure of Eve, which represents purely instinctual and biological relations. The second can be seen in Faust's Helen. She personifies a romantic and aesthetic level that is, however, still characterized by sexual elements. The third is represented, for instance, by the Virgin Mary, a figure who raises love, Eros, to the heights of spiritual devotion. The fourth type is symbolized by Sapientia, wisdom transcending even the most holy and the most pure. So when I read this, I actually thought it's like the stages of mature love, how
Mhm.
men see it. So, because I was thinking, okay, usually the first stage, when like a very immature man, he's just gonna focus on, how sexually attractive is the woman, or just a very biological love. It's not really love, it's more like lust, right?
Yeah.
And then the second stage is more romantic, like the man is starting to maybe develop feelings or idealize the woman a bit more, but it's still kind of mixed up with the lust. And then the
Yeah.
third stage is where the man actually starts developing this devotional love. Like when you see that the man like almost would like die for the woman and is like very invested in her emotionally and almost sees her like as a higher being. This is like the third stage, and the fourth stage is like, I mean, also here it's mentioned that the fourth stage is very rarely reached, and
Yeah.
and
Very rare.
he even says it comes close to the Mona Lisa, which I found
Oh,
kind of found
damn.
funny because why
Wow.
Mona Lisa? But um, also sapiencia, so it also made me think of sapiosexuals. Yeah, so the fourth stage is supposed to be very abstract. So it's
Yeah.
very idealized, very ethereal, like almost not from this earth, I found. So what do you think when you hear these stages? So this is supposed to be the anima in the man. So what do
Yeah.
you think about this?
I feel like I do see some truth because there are men who do tell me they have like, I mean, they didn't say they reached the devotional stage, but the way they speak of their wives sounds like they are in a more devotional space. But that's quite rare. I would say that most people are probably stage one or two at
Yeah,
this moment in time.
yeah,
But there are like, couples who are maybe married for a long time and it's a very, healthy marriage and they really complement each other, and that when the man speak of his wife, it sounds like he's, very devoted and to the point where, he would sacrifice for her. Um and it's like the protector instinct, I guess. But definitely I think most people, have been in one and two.
yeah. It's very common. So the thing, yeah, I was wondering about. So this is supposed to be actually the developments in the man himself, but I guess there's like this connection, right? Like what is within you, you will find outside of yourself as well. So how the man sees the feminine in himself or in general, he's gonna find outside of himself, right? So if, in other words, like if a man believes that all women are just good for sex or whatever, then he's just gonna see everyone on just this first level, right? So it's just gonna be lust based. So also his capability of being in touch with himself and his own femininity and his view on femininity is going to be reflected in the outside world. At least that's my interpretation of this.
Yeah, that's really interesting because it touches on like the idea of projection also, right? Which is what
True.
we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, projection. Yeah. Before we go into projection, I would also talk about the Animus one because that one I am at odds with as well a little bit. I'm curious what you think about that one.
Okay.
So with the Animus, let me see. I think it's also here. So the Animus, just like the Anima, exhibits four stages of development. He first appears as a personification of mere physical power, for instance, as an athletic champion or muscle man. In the next stage, he possesses initiative and the capacity for planned action. In the third phase, the Animus becomes the Word, often appearing as a professor or clergyman. Finally, in his fourth manifestation, the Animus is the incarnation of meaning. On this highest level, he becomes, like the anima, a mediator of the religious experience whereby life acquires new meaning. He gives the woman spiritual firmness, an invisible inner support that compensates for her outer softness. And then it goes on, but so I'm just gonna say what I thought. I don't know if, I mean, this is once again, this is going to be different for every woman, I think, how she relates to this. I actually thought that this seemed quite biased towards NI men. Like, in other words,
Yes, I
I had the
agree.
I
I
had the
agree.
impression that okay, like SE, especially as the first stage sounds very SE to me. So like okay, SE men, it's just like first stage, first level, not that great, and then
Like
the
caveman,
final,
like they're trying to
yeah,
stereotype, it's like, oh, you only have muscles, you don't have
yeah.
brain.
And then the fourth level, it sounded very NI, and
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I feel that there's a bias. Like, no offense to some of the writers. I mean, I have
I mean,
not read it
this
too.
is yeah. I mean, this is supposed to be Jung. I mean, it's written by someone else, but it is Jung. So
Oh, really?
Jung himself actually believed in these four stages for both Anima and Animus. And I
Okay.
thought, okay, Jung. So he thinks he him. I personally think Jung is probably INFJ. I mean, I know
Yeah,
there's
I think
different
so
people,
too. Yeah.
and so he probably thought that his version of masculinity is like the the fourth level. I don't know. What do you think?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it's easy for I think it's easy for intuitive men to sort of idealize themselves. I mean, we all idealize ourselves to some degree, right? So I feel like maybe that influenced a little bit in the Animus writing. Because the animal
Yeah,
one sounded a bit more like I feel like the anima writing sounded like pretty like true to me, at least from what
yeah.
I've seen. The animus. I'm not sure about that either.
Yeah, like the anima, I could see that's how many men, how they treat women and how they relate to women in a way. But with animus, I mean, I can maybe see that maybe in the beginning, kind of similar to Eve, like the man who's like muscular, I guess like attractive and stuff like that. It's more, more sexual maybe in the beginning, but that's as much as I could see here. I don't know. I just maybe I'm misinterpreting this. But yeah, it seems a bit biased towards introverted intuition.
Hmm.
Um, I could maybe say, okay, the fourth level being meaning, but that could just be applying to everybody as well, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
you go from the basics and then you go to the higher good or the meaning of things. So also thinking about this, like, okay, if we go by type, what is animus anima in type terms? But like I mentioned earlier, okay, an INFJ man and an ESTP woman, I find difficult to put that into this theory. You know what I mean? Like, okay, yeah, technically she would be anima, but she doesn't really fit the emotional part, right? Like the emotional side of a man, which is often written about, or you know, yeah, like the wisdom at the fourth level and things like that.
Hmm.
So I think there's a difference here.
Yeah.
But I at the same time I agree also that your inner masculinity or femininity, it really depends on the person.
Yeah.
So
So the
um,
way I imagine is also different from how other people imagine, because there's like biology, there's like parents factor, cultural and all that. So even my version of STP is not going to be the same as somebody else's imagined or idealized version, right? Because the way I see it is like it's going to be different from even a real life ESTP because it's
yeah,
not
it's more
animus. So it's
idealized.
basically
So
part of me, actually.
yeah, right. So for me, actually, I was also thinking what would be my animus, and in the past, like a couple years ago, or whatever, I think it did lean more towards the logos side in the sense of, okay, like sometimes I was a bit too categorical with like my logic and things like that. And back then it was probably more like INTP actually. It's like kind of like, with theories and things like that. And then more recently, I thought I even had a dream about it, and it was actually like ENFJ. That was more like my what I deemed to be more like my animus. So basically, my more extroverted side, like my extroverted side, is more quote unquote masculine. But once again, I was also thinking it's also just gender roles a little bit, right? Like T thinking is considered masculine, extroversion can sometimes be considered masculine. So I don't know. So I'm a bit like, okay, I still trying to discover that a bit more.
I
Okay,
feel like
yeah,
the way I see it is like, how do you see, like, the question I ask is like, how do I see myself? Like, let's say if I'm a man, if I
yeah,
am a guy, like if I can be a guy, what kind of guy would I want to be? Interestingly, when I asked my friend who's an ESFP the same question, the answer she gave, by the way, she doesn't know about MBTI deeply. She gave a very the male version of her sounds very NTJ.
Yeah.
And it's like I never put ideas in her head saying, you have to say this and that. Like, but she literally gave a very, like, the characteristics that she said in that man, whatever, it's a projection of herself basically, right? But she described a guy who's very NTJ in his personality, and it's very interesting because both of them are, sort of like the considered the part of our weaker functions. So for ESFP is like the INTJ is like the reverse, right?
Hmm.
And she basically describes a man who is very, she likes introverts, and she says that he works hard, he's introverted, he's not like attention seeking, doesn't have social media, he's very intelligent. She really emphasized on his intelligence, like
Yeah.
intellect, right? He's like very, very intellectual. Like, she really likes intellectual man, and that's kind of basically, it's she doesn't realize that it's actually her own animus that she's seeing in other people, right?
Yeah. So that's how it expresses itself. It's also funny you mentioned because my sister is ESFP, and also she recently also described the kind of guy she's into, and
The idealized guy, right? The
yeah, and also
idealized
sounded
version.
like an INTJ kind of. She also prefers introverts, and she said, yeah, yeah, like it's a bit more mysterious. I have to figure it out.
Mm.
Yeah,
Sounds
so
like
that was
introverted
funny.
intuition.
Yeah, it was funny to hear that. Yeah, so yeah, it is. It can be. So the interesting thing is, I guess we can go into the next topic then. The mix of projection and your parents and your type, and
Yeah.
how that all plays into your ideal mate or your ideal image of your mate, which can also be called Imago. But before we go into Imago, so yeah, the father and mother are often projections. Like, or in other words, Anima Animus is often a projection of your parents,
Yeah.
right? And
Some qualities of them, not exactly the same, but like,
yeah,
things from them and put it on as
yeah, and
blend.
right, and a lot of examples in the readings. So they also say that in some cases the parent is almost deified or made into like a godlike figure through the anima, sort of like kind of like your own mythology. So it's kind of like when a kid sees their parent as a superhero or like a god or something, because the parent is so much more strong and wise than you are. So you, as a kid, you see it like that. And some people don't really grow out of it until they're much older. And
Oh,
then, it's this,
disaster.
yeah, it's like there's also this concept of the devouring mother. So it's usually like the mother who is, it often happens between men, like sons and mothers. Like often, I notice it's often like a single mom, and the guy
Yes,
is
I noticed that too. Oh my
and
God.
the guy is like like the stereotypical guy in the basement or whatever who is just sitting at home with his mom, and the mom is so obsessed with him and she doesn't let him grow up or go out or do anything or be detached from her. So, and oftentimes the man in this case has an overly, yeah, I guess, has a view of his mother that's too godlike almost. Like, oh, I cannot do anything. Like they feel like they're powerless almost.
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
Yeah, it's a very sad situation because, I mean, you know, popular psychology term, but like, our childhood trauma, for
Yeah,
lack of a better word, it really does influence our actual relationship dynamic in terms of what we project onto other people. And that's like, I feel like that's like an added layer. So we can have an idealized, whatever version of man or woman that we like, but it's also like when we go out in real life dating and real life relationships, there is a part of that, parental thing going on. So what I also notice in some of my friends is some of the negative qualities of their father or mother are then also projected onto their partner. So they may unconsciously seek out partners that have those negative qualities as their parents, which I guess
exactly.
now it's not so controversial to say because mainstream psychology has sort of already certified that that's the case, and a lot of people joke about it right online, but it's very true. And let's say if a man has, like you said, a mom who is very controlling, he may unconsciously be drawn to women who are very controlling, and then he sort of generalizes and says like, oh, all women are controlling, but it's actually his anima, right? That's kind of
Yeah,
had
right.
to. So he's like he has an inner mother. This is getting a little, abstract, but it's like his inner mother is controlling because he internalized that. And for women, it's the same thing, right? Like maybe their dad is like, or sometimes even their mom. Sometimes it can be a mix, because whoever the parent is like has a strong influence on you. And
Right.
um, unfortunately, doubts of a bad hand he keep projecting.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then and then they generalize and say like, oh, why are all my partners this way? And it's
All
actually
men, all women.
yeah, it's actually an unconscious, unfortunately, they are attracted to, right, certain qualities that they see in their parents, and then they generalize, oh, all of this type of people are like men are this way. But it's actually, when I look at my friends and me, we have very different dynamics because we project different negative qualities. So
Yeah.
sometimes, one of my friends, she would constantly date men who's like very has qualities of her ideal, but with the negative baggage of the father. So it could be someone who's very critical, because her dad was very critical. And well, my dad is not that critical, so like I don't have that problem as much, but I have other issues which I would not say here. But
You don't have to know.
it's kind of like there's a
Yeah.
blend from both your parents and your personality type and culture.
Right. Yeah. It's like for me, like many years ago, whatever, 7 years ago, five, whatever, I came across this book by Havel Hendricks. I think it was called "Keep the Love You Find" or something like that. And here he also mentioned the Jungian concept. It's basically a Jungian concept called Imago, and it's exactly what you described, where we have this idealized image in our minds or unconscious, and it is based on our parents. I mean, I think so. Anima Animus sounds very much based on just parents and maybe mythology. I think it's based on both your parents, can also be based on your culture, can be based on, like, it's like a mix of influences,
Yeah,
whatever
it's a
influenced you.
blend. Yeah.
Yeah, and then usually if you have a type, and I don't mean like personality, well, it can be in personality type, but if you have a type of person you are like routinely attracted to, that's usually your imago. And if you're unlucky and you had shitty parents, it's
Bad
gonna be
Imago.
shitty. um,
So
so
unfortunate.
yeah, unfortunately, you don't really have control over,
Who you're attracted to.
yeah, or what the imago is. However, the more the more aware you are, you have more of a chance to make your own decisions and to not fall for, you know, certain things. Um,
Yeah.
it's, I mean, I guess if we talk in psychological terms, like, yeah, if you go to therapy, or you do your healing, you you try to heal certain aspects about your past or whatever it is, then the grip of those things is less strong, but it will be there to some extent. So the best thing you can do really is to make it as aware as possible. But even so, so this is actually a method I also use with my clients. When they want to find a partner and things like that, I go with them through like an imago exercise to kind of figure out, okay, what is the type, like what is your kind of person you tend to be attracted to? How can we find a way to make it so you find someone who has some of those traits, but is also not, totally horrible. Like you kind of have to find something that's like a Venn diagram, like that's like kind of
Yes.
overlapping. Um, I have done that. I've also done it with myself, but later
Did it work?
on, yeah, it did work. But
Yay.
the thing is though, only later, even after, there are some things you will not be aware of,
Yeah,
only much
unconscious,
later. So
unfortunately.
even after you've done, certain things, only much later you might realize, oh, actually, this is a trait, and it does remind me of my parent, but I wasn't aware. Like it's really weird. Like if the problem is, the more unaware you are, the more it's gonna have an impact. But
Yeah.
what I've also seen is some people are very aware of it, but they are also very defensive about it. And then it can still have a negative effect. Like I don't know, if you believe, I don't know, your dad was a jerk or whatever, like your dad was horrible or he did something horrible, and then you are consciously aware of that, and you're like, oh, I hate this, I don't want this in any man, whatever. I see that these people often still end up in relationships with men who do that.
Yeah, yeah. And we see that like
Yeah.
in the, influencer sphere, because, they publicize their relationships, right? Where they would tell you like, I'm never going to be with a man like my dad. And then their husband who became, later became divorced with, like, ended up exactly like that. Um, that's
Yeah.
the problem with the unconscious though, because it's not easy to spot. Because some people can appear a certain way, right? But then behind the closed doors, let's say if you say, "Oh, I don't want to find a man who's controlling because he reminds me of my father," and then you can come across a very, you know, feely type of guy, like a very like emotional type of guy, and then he ends up very controlling
Yeah.
behind closed doors. So it's an
Yeah.
unconscious pattern, and that's what is annoying because it's not always something you can spot right away, and a lot of it is like our nervous system is like, unfortunately going with what is familiar, and that's annoying also. So I kind of want to share my experience, even though I don't have like a partnership right now, but like I feel like there is also a part of it is like as you integrate your own animus, you actually are less drawn to extreme qualities. That's what I notice in myself. So I think Jung's theory is actually advocating for integration first, right? Like, I mean, obviously we can date while integrating. Like, it's not like a either or situation, but it's like the more you sort of integrate your own animus, like, so for example, my animus, I know there are some positive qualities, right? Like, he is very, speaking for myself, I imagine someone who's very adaptable and free spirited, and like, he doesn't have to follow all the rules, but he somehow, knows how to live well. So my idea is like, I don't like, for myself, I don't like following all the rules. Like, I don't like, um let's say, the idea of you can only make a living in a certain way, right? That's like a rule that society sort of forces you, like, oh, you have to work in a certain type of job. Like, I don't like that. So that's actually my animus talking, he's like, I don't follow all the rules, but I
Yeah.
still am able to live a really great life, and people are able to respect me for that. And so the way I do it is like I have to integrate that part of myself. So instead of looking for a man who is, so I was very drawn to entrepreneurs for a long time, not knowing that I'm actually talking about myself trying to become an entrepreneur. So that's such a funny thing. Like, I will be drawn to all these men, who are entrepreneurs and doing their own thing, and I'm like, that's actually what I want to do, and I'm self-sabotaging all the time. And so now I'm like, I got to integrate that. So I actually become the person who is, consistent, who is able to make a living, and also have freedom, because that's what matters to me. And also, I feel like ever since I start integrating, I don't necessarily worship those men anymore. You know what I mean? It's like
Hmm.
when you don't integrate, you sort of worship people and idealize them because that's actually you, but you're not aware, right? So I'm like, oh wow, like these men are like, freelancing and like also very rich and all that, right? But that kind of flexible lifestyle is actually available to me. And so now when I look at this man, I'm like, oh, they are like me. So I'm not idolizing them as much.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Hmm. Yeah.
And also with
Yeah.
extroversion. Sorry, I'm like going
Oh,
on a
no,
rant.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Because I'm thinking like I used to idolize extroverts so much in my teen years because I was very, introverted. And a lot of it came from social anxiety, to be honest. But,
Mm,
ever since I kind of got more friends in college and I'm very happy with, my connections, like I actually, my attraction to extrovert actually dropped. Because I feel
yeah.
like it's too extreme, I kind of like someone in the middle. Like obviously everybody has, introversion or extroversion, but I
Mhm.
like someone who's more like not too crazy, you know what I mean? Socially speaking. Because
Yeah, okay.
too many connections, then that's the issue for me. Like it's too unstable. So now I actually like, if a guy doesn't have social media, that's great. I actually I feel like I'm maybe more drawn to introverts, who knows? Because I feel like a lot of our idealized qualities are things that we want for our own lives. And once you integrate, maybe you will find a more compatible partner who is actually going to benefit your life.
Hmm.
So it's like a combo of like you said, right? It's like a Venn diagram. Like, yes, there are some qualities that I still want in a partner that are part of that, animus stuff, but there are also other qualities that I can let go of. Like, do I really need a, crazy extrovert? Not really. I can let
Yeah.
go of that because I feel like I'm pretty social as an introvert and I can find another social introvert like no problem.
Hmm. Yeah, actually, so I actually was thinking that when there's a very strong negative charge towards something, it could be from your past or a personality trait, then it's going to have more of a hold on you. So you also mentioned, for example, you had the social anxiety. So there was a very negative charge, and then in
Yeah,
turn you
very
were more drawn to the extroverts who would
like
compensate.
extreme extroverts. I was drawn to
Yeah,
like men who are like talking to people all the time, including women, and that's very unhealthy for a relationship, you
yeah,
know.
it's not the best. So that was a good, yeah. So you kind of took out the edge by becoming, I guess, less shy in a way.
Yeah.
So with individuation or integration, or I kind of confused the two for a moment, but I guess it's kind of similar. Becoming more of who you are, becoming more well-rounded. I would have to say though, I see also that some people go to the extreme with that,
Yeah.
where they
Mhm.
try to become
Exactly like the
the
opposite or something.
right, the exact opposite, and they try to also in personality type terms, like I see people trying to become the opposite type of what they are, and
I
then
have seen that, yes.
it doesn't really work either. So yeah, but with integration, you should really focus on parts of yourself that you maybe have neglected, or maybe it's in your shadow. We talked more about it in the previous video. Um, so once you integrate yourself more, I guess you can also attract a partner who's more integrated themselves, right? In the
Yeah,
end.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's not really what the whole integration is about. Also, years ago, I would see people writing about how you should develop all functions at the same level, or you just, that's all what integration is about. I think Socionics made it clear that you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to become the opposite type. It doesn't
Oh
even
yeah, no, no,
work.
no. That's too exhausting. I tried
Yeah.
honestly in my early 20s, did not work so well.
Yeah, and I also noticed, so my partner, he's an STP, and since like being with him, I noticed that me trying to be super logical went away because he was the logic instead, like I
It's
didn't have
actually a
to.
relief, right? It's a relief
Yeah, it
of an
was
experience.
interesting. It's you can see, so some parts you should integrate, some parts you have to discover, some parts you should just leave it, You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like
Yeah.
it really depends on a case by case basis. Yeah, if you feel, I mean, I guess it's kind of common sense, but if you feel really unhappy, probably just not living in alignment with your personality, right? I mean, there's many different reasons someone can be unhappy, but that's like one of the reasons.
Mhm.
Your lifestyle might not fit your personality, and yeah, some people really try to force it. It depends on the culture too. Some cultures want you to be more extroverted, other cultures
Right,
not so
culture,
much.
another annoying aspect of life.
Yeah, so it really depends. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to mention that we haven't talked about?
So I'm very curious about your dynamic because, like I'm wondering for the STP, since you are with one, like do you see him developing like his, introverted intuition and extrovert feeling, or at least like being more integrated?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think once again, it always depends on the people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, without going into too many details, I think, well, the thing is, you kind of go back into your own lane more. So what that means is, so like I said, I started not being so obsessed with being logical anymore because he would be the logic. You know what I mean? Like he would point it out, and in turn, I think what I've helped him with is just, I guess, also get in touch more with emotional things to some extent. So becoming more emotionally aware of what's going on with him, and I mean, yeah, just I guess psychology stuff. He was already interested in that before, but I think I helped him with that as well. It's you just kind of help each other out, but you don't try so much to be a different type anymore. And yeah, but once again, it depends on what kind of combination it is. So I'm just giving one example. So usually the more compatible personality types, they make you want to embrace yourself more, like how your personality is. So you're not going to feel as much the need to be something different, if that makes sense. So you start getting back more into who you are. So that's what it can do. Yeah, so yeah, I would say I just helped him with my lane and he helps me with his lane, if that makes sense. So with like he helps me out with some logical things, with also like physical things that I struggle with, and I help him out with the other side. Also sometimes, giving advice, oh, okay, how you should act with people, what could happen, and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of the dynamic with that. But yeah, it's interesting. You kind of what I notice when people are getting advice from other people, you start implementing these things, and they make your life better. But you're not trying to be them. You're just using their advice, right?
Yes.
So I
Mhm.
do the same even with YouTube videos or whatever. Sometimes I watch YouTube videos with people they're good in this area that I'm not good at, and then I kind of implement their advice and things get better. But I'm not trying to be them per se. Like I'm not, it's hard to explain. But this
Yeah,
is
I think
kind
that's an
of
important distinction.
it's. I guess we kind of go back to the beginning where we talked about uh, yeah, if you're too caught up in your unhealthy anima or animus and you try to be too much like the other side, that's not the point, right? So the healthier you become, you start integrating it, but it's not taking over and you're not changing yourself too much. It's a
Yeah.
bit hard to describe, I have to say. What do you say on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I honestly, because I haven't, had the experience like you do, so like with being with a very compatible partner, so I feel like I don't know if I have been overcorrecting in some cases. Oops.
It's normal to be honest. I mean, it's very normal to overcorrect. Um, yeah, I'm just saying. What do you think? I mean, I guess it goes back to what we said in the beginning. Becoming more of who you are. I guess it's an ongoing journey. I have to say, I'm not gonna say and be like, oh, I have arrived and I'm 100% myself. I'm also caught up with culture, and it can sometimes be a struggle, right? Like sometimes you don't fit into certain things, and it can be difficult to fully be yourself sometimes. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
I
I
think.
think it's
Mhm.
how it is. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's like whatever feels like in flow, which sounds very vague, but sometimes it's like I feel like there is a part of me that is actually very bro, for lack of a better word, and that's like who I actually am. So I think that's okay to express because I feel happy doing it. Like, with my friends, like we make jokes and I will be like, this sounds like, very unfiltered and like kind of, not what people consider polite or whatever. And I think that's fine because that's actually a part of who I am. Like I'm actually not that I think sometimes we kind of, there is this delicate balance, right? It's like there's the gender roles and like we are like, oh, maybe this is like a little too um not feminine. And I think that also can be difficult to see where the line is, right? It's like I'm not trying to be them, but if some of my humor is like similar, then can't help it, but it's not like I'm trying to actively do the things that they do because I there are some things that I don't enjoy at all. Like I'm not like into things that are very like adrenaline, I don't know, like adrenaline junkie stuff, like scary stuff. Like I'm actually like I don't like driving, for example. And people have told me to drive all the time and I'm like, sorry, not my thing. Like I have to say that a lot of times because people really push things on you sometimes, like like they want you to be independent and like all that stuff, but there are certain things that I really just don't enjoy doing, and I really want to make my own life easier for myself, so somebody else do it. And I'm so attracted to people who drive well, men and women. Because when I drive well, I'm like, that's like the most attractive thing ever, because I do not like the concept of driving myself.
Yeah, it's funny. Once again, it's like you have this negative charge emotionally towards the driving, and then in turn you're attracted to those who are good at it.
Yeah,
It's
I
funny.
literally shared a video of that on my IG story. It was two women, like the one of them is just sitting there, looking at herself, and the other one is like, wow, maneuvering, like I'm like, that's really attractive. Like you do you, I'm not gonna do anything here.
Yeah, yeah. Attraction is a funny thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I kind of summarize it. I'm just trying to see like where to go from here, right? So, okay, what do you do if you know all this stuff?
Yeah,
um,
what to do? Please,
yeah.
'cause I don't know what to do.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say I have all the answers, but I mean, like for those of you who are watching, if you're interested in my services, you can find the link in my description box. And yeah, so if you want to get coached by me, I will go with you through all of this. Not necessarily so much into Anima and Animus unless you're interested, but we can go into what is your Imago, what are you attracted to, how can we make sure you find a match that still suits you without like this overlap between attraction and compatibility. So yeah, if you're interested in that, you can go into the description box and you can go from there to my website typevolution.com, etc., etc. But yeah, other than that, I guess on a more personal level, um, I guess don't be too upset if what you're attracted to is a bit bad at the moment, or or if you're struggling a little bit with being your whole self, or
Yeah.
feminine, masculine, gender roles, all that stuff. I guess it's very human to struggle with this. I would also say, okay, even though I have a compatible personality type partner, let's say, and I'm also pursuing, my interests online and things like that. There's areas in my life that are also not quote unquote perfect. I'm not like gonna be the kind of person who says, "Oh, I have of everything figured out." This is also like a discussion, right? We want to explore the concepts of anima, animus, what Jung taught, um, and we were trying to get closer to what is human psychology, what is human psyche, how can we develop it, how can we get closer to it. So yeah, I mean, that's all we can do at this point. Right?
Yeah. Lots more questions
Yeah.
than
Well,
answers.
yeah, there's certain things that are the way they are, and there's certain things we can to some extent change, or at least we can use the tools, we can become aware. So I guess just a little thing you can do after this entire conversation, maybe you've done it already. I mean, also the people watching, just think about, okay, what could be your anima or animus, right? And actually, one thing we haven't gone into, which I saw briefly mentioned, which is very controversial, about homosexuality and anima and animus. Actually,
Oh, I have
your it's very
really read
tricky.
much
I'm
about
not
that.
going to be an expert on this. I just saw that I think Jung mentioned that the man who is homosexual is kind of overly connected with the anima, or like identifies with the anima or something like that. But it's very controversial. Um,
I have not
so
read up on that yet.
yeah, it's he didn't talk much about it, so I'm also not gonna go more into it. Doesn't even, okay, no matter what you are, just think about what is your anima animus, and that can mean what is your inner masculinity, femininity, and it would be interesting to know. Like you can write in the comments or whatever. Just think about it. What is it? Is it a certain personality type? Is it like your mom or your dad, or if you can see certain patterns? So yeah, that's all we can do at this point. Just try to reflect on it and become a bit more aware. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I would say one more piece of advice, for lack
yeah.
of a better term, is like be wary of your own projections because we all have it. And what I notice is like, when you start to generalize a group of people, it's usually a projection. Even though, yes, you may have negative experiences. Because I've met men, like for example, like with the mom thing, right? Like maybe they have been like there's this guy, anyway, many years ago, so it doesn't really matter. Like he has a mom that really kind of coddled him, like kind of overprotected him, and so he's going around looking for women who are going to really take care of him,
Yeah.
like a mom to him. And he doesn't realize that he's doing that projecting thing. And when there are women who are maybe looking for him to, you know, be like more protective of them, he sort of see that as a negative quality. He's like, oh, you are not independent enough, like you should be, this is that. But it's actually like when people are sort of attributing qualities to a lot of women, like he would say like, oh, this group of women are like, trying to take advantage of me, like they're not my idealized whatever partner. It's often like either related to a parent, like maybe they are looking for an ideal mother, or it's also could be their inner feminine that is, you know that they have certain qualities that they haven't integrated. So it's very complex, but normally the I think the rule of the situation is, if you see a pattern of generalizing people, saying that like women are selfish or men are commitment phobic. I mean, that's very controversial to say because a lot of people say that, but like sometimes it could be a part of the unconscious attraction and projection from you know parents and culture. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good summary. I was just thinking, if there's certain characters in your life that keep reappearing, almost like a ghost, or like, you know what I mean? Like almost like you're playing a video game or watching a movie, and this kind of person keeps popping up in just different with different faces, or but it's the same kind of person, then it's probably your anima or your animus, or some unconscious thing going on that is driving that to emerge, like that driving that behavior in you to look for these people unconsciously. You're not even aware that's what you're doing. And also the kinds of people you let into your life, oftentimes very much driven by these unconscious mechanisms. So just try to, like you say, try to take note of those patterns if you can. So yeah, okay, let's close it here. We've talked a lot about this. Make sure to also check out Tori's channel, and yeah, I guess that's all. Okay, have a good day.
All right, thank you for having me.
Sure. Okay, bye.
Bye.